Welcome to Online Card Classes Crafty Chat, Episode 12, where we will be chatting with Aaron Leventhal, the CEO of Hero Arts, and he will tell us the incredible story of a woman who lit the fire under the rubber stamping industry out of her bathroom in Berkeley, California in the mid-70s. You'll love what you're about to hear. Hey everybody. Welcome to Online Card Classes Crafty Chat. My name is Lydia Fiedler. I am the community manager of Split Coast Stampers during the day. And in my free time, I blog at understandblue.com. And today we have with us Jennifer McGuire.
Hi, I'm Jennifer. I am one of the founders and co-owners of Online Card Classes, and I blog over at jennifermcguireinc.com.
And Christina Werner.
Hey guys, Christina here. I also helped start Online Card Classes, and I blog at kwernerdesign.com.
And our guest today is Aaron Leventhal from Hero Arts, and he was nice enough to stop playing Pokemon Go today and spend a little bit of time with us, telling us his story. So Aaron, tell us a little bit about yourself and where people can find Hero Arts on the internet.
Sure. First of all, I'm super excited to be here. Thank you so much for including me. And I do love Pokemon Go, and so I'll try to keep my phone off while we're doing this. Hero Arts is available at heroarts.com. It was founded more than 40 years ago by my mother, and I'm the current CEO.
Well, 40 years, that most definitely is the longest term company I think that we've interviewed on Crafty Chat. That's pretty exciting. Can you tell us a little bit about how Hero Arts got started?
Absolutely. You know, actually, I was just looking at all the details of this because I was there, but I was a little kid. And so I had to kind of recount in my own mind what my mom's told me before about starting it. Because what I remember is I would be in the bathroom, and my mother would knock on the door saying, "Aaron, I need to come in there because that's where our rubber stamp press is, and I need to get to it because somebody just ordered a stamp." And so I actually, as a little kid, used to not like Hero Arts at all. It wasn't even called Hero Arts at that point. This is right around early 1974, and my mother is, at this time, a school teacher for at-risk youth. And she's working in a very tough environment and tries different things to get them engaged and excited. And it just turned out that art was something that really appealed to them. She was a hobbyist photographer, actually a very accomplished photographer, who just had a show at the De Young Museum, and so she had other artsy friends that she knew, and they would give her suggestions for what to try with her class. And she found this opportunity to actually originally start, I think, with carving potatoes, but then somebody suggested, hey, maybe try this new thing, rubber stamps. A British friend of hers had seen them in England and suggested she give it a try. So my mom asked around and found a vulcanizer, which is the part that actually vulcanizes and changes the raw rubber into a stamp. Tried it with her class, and they absolutely loved it. And you know what? My mom loved it too. Started making some of her own designs, and lo and behold, she found that this was a wonderful alternative to photography, which is perfect and very finicky, and you have to just get the chemicals right in the dark room, and if the light's wrong, it doesn't work at all. Where stamps, you could just ink and just put on paper, you could make mistakes, and it was a wonderful thing. And from that, her passion was born, and the company basically started in her bathroom.
That's amazing. What was the name of the company when she started it?
You know, it's interesting. She was called the Stamp Lady. So she didn't really have a company name initially because she was just making it for friends. She made stamps. People would bring drawings to her, sometimes even photos that they would say, hey, could you make it into a stamp? So she'd try all different things. It was just a hobby. But as a school teacher, it's kind of hard to make ends meet as a single mom. My father had left her when I was 18 months old, so she was kind of struggling to make ends meet. So she started just selling them on Telegraph Avenue, which is the local artsy street in the Bay Area right near where we lived. Telegraph Avenue is famed, of course, for Vietnam protests and the activism of the 70s, but there are also a lot of art and artists who live in the area. So she started selling them there. And in the process of doing that, maybe even traveling to some local shows in the area, she met up with an illustrator and writer who really wanted Jackie to be her guest illustrator on a book project she was writing. And the book project was a children's book. And she said, "I love your stamps. Could you possibly, do the illustrations for me?" My mom's like, "I'm not really an illustrator, but you know what? I'll make a bunch of stamps and we'll stamp out the illustrations of your book." And as far as we know, it was the first book that has ever had stamps be the illustrations. And the book was called A Girl Named Hero. And Jackie just loved the book so much that she eventually thought of Hero, the protagonist who fought the candy monster in this children's book, with her illustrations as kind of herself. So she named the company Jackie Arts, or Hero Arts.
Is the book still in publication? Can you still get it?
You can buy it on Amazon, but it's one of those, they have to print it. Like, it's long since out of print. So the mid-'80s, I think it went out of print. And I'm sad to say I don't own a copy myself. My mom has one, and the author, she signed it. And so that's about the only copy that we know of that is still around. But nonetheless, it's the genesis of the name of the company.
What a great story. And then, so when she went out and bought the vulcanizer for her class, then she brought it home, and that's where it lived in your bathroom?
Yes. And the reason why I lived in our bathroom is we lived in a old rambling Berkeley apartment. Berkeley, has very old build houses, a lot of them built in the early 19th century. And so this had very poor wiring, this house. And so for the vulcanizer to run, it needed 3-prong plug, right? It needed an outlet that actually was grounded. And there's only one in the whole house, and it was in the bathroom. And so for that reason, it was just one bathroom house, so I'd be showering or brushing my teeth, and my mom would, panic and need to come in if I stayed in there too long, and that's where that would come from. And so the vulcanizer sat proudly right in our bathroom until these trade shows, well, not really trade shows, sorry, craft shows that she would do on Telegraph started getting just too much for her to handle. So much so that she actually took time off from school the next year and did this full time. And she tells the story that she had $3,000 in the bank. This is 1974. $3,000 in the bank, that's what we were going to live on for the year. And by the end of that year, after selling stamps here and there to friends, but also teaching some classes about how to make stamps, and also selling in these craft shows, she still had $3,000 left in the bank at the end of the year. So she knew, okay, maybe this is a business.
Yeah.
And so that's when she kind of decided, okay, I better get a name, Hero Arts, and I better actually register this business as legal. So that's actually a little secret. Our official start as a company was May 1974. But we say May 1976 because that's when the official tax ID was assigned.
We won't tell.
The rest was under the table, I guess. I don't know how they did that back then, but
that's a real cottage industry. I mean, that's the definition of a cottage industry. It's just if you got a vulcanizer in your bathroom.
It's so true. And she found this in the basement of her school. So her school had a vulcanizer for some reason, probably for other purposes. And she just borrowed it. Nobody was using it, and they ended up giving it to her. And because she got such great use out of it, she'd make it for her classes first, but then she started selling the stamps, and her passion was born. It's interesting, though, at that time, as far as she knew, and I haven't really done the research around this, but there were no decorative rubber stamp companies. I mean, this was kind of a new idea. It's hard to imagine today with our industry, with so many wonderful stamp companies and wonderful opportunities, and not just stamping, but all the various arts that are represented, from inks to to embossing powders, etc. All these things are available. But back then, it was a big deal to get a purple ink pad. I mean, black was all you could find. It was industrial, art-based inks, and so even back at the time, there was no industry. And there also were no competitors. And my mom, I mentioned, she gave a class to try to make ends meet about how to make stamps. And in that class was one of her good friends, who was a photographer with her, who started All Night Media. And another person, Jessica, who was the sister of Sam, who founded Rubber Stampede. And so in those years, those companies all started right about the same time, right in the Bay Area, kind of like, the Italian shoe industries all in a small town in Italy. It's like decorative rubber stamps started in Berkeley, California.
Wow, so many great things have come out of California. I did not know that whole industry was born there. That's amazing.
So basically, you're telling us that all the women and men in this craft industry have you to thank, or your mom to thank, and all the spouses who wonder how we spend so much money on this have you to thank too.
Or to blame, right?
I was going to say, well, we'll have to put his email address out there so all our spouses can email.
Right. No, definitely would not take credit for that. I mean, it's a wild creative industry, and I think wherever the roots of an industry or an idea come from, there's always wonderful creativity and innovation that follows. And I think maybe you could say Jackie and Bob and Sam, who started these other companies as well, All Night Media and Rubber Stampede, they provided the spark. And that spark is what originally maybe started the fire, but nonetheless that fire was going to burn somewhere, and it just happened to start in that place. And I think that the industry is now so many light years away from what they could have imagined it being, especially given they weren't thinking of it as businesses. They were thinking of it as hobbies and something that they really just had a passion about doing. In my mom's case, making ends meet.
Right.
And just, really just finding this something that, man, I would love to be able to do this. Right, but not realizing that she could as a company for a number of years before she actually did.
Did she continue to teach for a while, or after those, how soon was it before it was a full-time job for her?
Yeah, she actually was thinking about stepping back from teaching anyway, because it was very difficult for her from a commuting perspective. She had a young child, me, so she was already looking for ways out of teaching. She had done it for 5 years in one district and 3 in another, and this new district was a good hour and a half away, so her commute was 3 hours every day. So she knew she had to change, so she never imagined stamps would be it, but she was actually looking for a way to get out, and she did. 1974, she took a sabbatical that next September for the year and never went back.
Wow.
That's kind of what I did, too. I was doing something that just wasn't working, and I took a chance on stamping. Thanks to you, Aaron. I took a chance on stamping, and I was able to make it a career, much like your mom. So that's incredible.
Yeah.
I'm glad she took that chance.
Me too. It's pretty amazing if you think about it, that she could take that chance with so much to lose, right?
Yes.
I mean,
Yeah.
Full-time job, something that she had, it was stable, but now she's going to take a leap. So, I'm super proud of her for being able to make that leap and really take that jump and follow her passion, right? Just like you, Jennifer, you kind of found a passion in this place and didn't know you would. And I don't think my mother at that time knew she would either. But when she did realize it was her passion, she decided that she's going to go all in.
Well, and especially as a single mom, how scary that leap must have been for her. I mean, that's a ton of responsibility when you have a secure job. I can't even imagine, knowing that everything was on her shoulders. She must be an amazing lady.
Definitely. I mean, I think it takes a lot of kind of inner strength to be able to do that. Raise a child by yourself alone, but then to make that leap, I've always been really impressed with that. And I try to tell her as often as I can. Hey, I'm so proud of you. You did this. Look at what you built.
Yeah.
I mean, it's very impressive. And she really had no business credentials. So going forward, we always joked, a Harvard graduate could not have built Hero Arts.
Yeah.
Right? Because it just was not a business person's idea. And it was a creative idea where there's so much creativity out there. Let's not try to, do something different on everything we do. Let's just try to do things that we're passionate about. And if I love doing something, I'm going to do it, and I'm going to share it with the customers that I have. And if they love it, great. That was kind of the leading light of the company for so many years. Be creative, be innovative, and follow your passion. And I think that has kind of kept with the company all these years. Even as now Jackie stepped back and is not a part of it anymore, I think those central tenets that she founded the company with still are bright light that we often try to keep burning whenever we can in the strategies that we pursue.
Yeah, and Hero has that reputation of just being kind to other little startup companies and being part of that growth that we see in that creativity, and that's something we love about Hero for sure. I remember, I won't confess to any years here. It's just our policy, but I remember very early into, so now that I know your timeline, it wasn't long before she was in retail, in small independent stamp company stores in Austin, Texas. I can tell you that based on what you've just told me. So when did she start selling to stamp stores across the country?
1981. So if you think of the timeline, she started the company in 1974. So the first documented stamp was in May 1974.
Amazing.
And so she did craft shows and street fairs and Telegraph Avenue for about a year, and then started to make catalogs, but it was all end users. So she'd mail it out, you get it on a mailing list, right? But this is no email now. This is your name down, right? And this was sent to you. And over time, the catalogs became quite large, and you would get retailers saying, hey, you should sell this, wholesale to me. And my mom initially was like, wait, what? I don't really understand. So I'm going to have my price? Right? So she kind of resisted the whole idea. Yeah, so she sold it to end users for a number of years, and then in 1979, there was somebody locally who wanted to sell her stamps, and so she gave it a try. So in 1979, she kind of started dabbling in retail, and by 1981, the company was mostly wholesale sales to retail stores. So it transitioned very quickly once she tried it and realized, you know what? I was totally wrong. This is exactly the way you should do it. They give you advanced orders. You don't have to have it ready, right? I don't have to go to these shows all over the place, and we travel all over. I mean, that would be the summers. My mom would literally get the van together, and we would drive to Arizona. We would drive to LA. We'd do these craft fairs that were, just like craft fairs you still have today. But that was her whole business until she realized I can actually stay at home and sell to these stores who then will do the work of marketing my stamps and getting people excited about stamping. So by 1981, the company was actually incorporated officially and was almost exclusively wholesale. And most of that's in the West, so I'm excited to hear that you saw them in Texas. But almost all of it was in California to start. About 50% of our business was in California, and that just slowly started creeping across the nation. But I have to say that in my research of when it started, I found this. This is, as far as I can tell, not the first, but one of the first catalogs. It's actually a fold-out poster.
Oh my gosh!
It's got all these stamps. It's just great. And here's one of the early popular ones right there. If you can see, that is a dancing frog right there. And that's, I think, one of our first stamps that we ever had. And this was the catalog. I mean, this was how she would sell to end users back in the 70s.
Wow.
And I think it's absolutely hilarious to look at that because there's no ink, there's no paper, no embossing powder, nothing else. It was all Marby marker pens. That's what you did. Stamp, and they just colored in with pens. Stamp in black, and you color in with pens. And that was the whole technique. There was really nothing else to it for a number of years before.
There was a lot of stamping on envelopes. That's when envelope art was really big because we didn't have anything but a black ink pad. So we just made our envelopes look pretty.
Yep.
But so if any of your teachers are watching this right now, did you just out yourself as to why you were never in school on a Friday or a Monday? Or how did you make that work with school, driving all around the country?
Yeah, I got pretty poor grades. No, she almost would do it exclusively in the summers, but that would be our summer vacation, right? We would drive to all these shows, and I was one of the workers. I mean, I would work all these shows. Sometimes, if it was nearby, I'd invite a friend. So that would be my kind of time to hang out with my buddies. But we would be selling stamps. In fact, all my friends through high school that I knew pretty much one time or another worked for Hero Arts. Summer job, selling at crafts fairs or doing inventory. So it was kind of the ongoing joke through high school that it employed most of my high school class, which was no small class. And went to Berkeley High, a very large school, and everybody at one point or another worked for my mom. And by the way, everybody, including me, call her Jackie. For some reason, I don't call my mom Mom. I call her Jackie.
Because you worked for her for so long.
I guess, yeah.
Right. So when did she stop making stamps in the bathroom and you started having a actual manufacturing facility?
Yeah, it's a good question. I'm a little fuzzy on the dates. I know my mom's told me many times, but basically it had to come out of the bathroom pretty quickly as soon as she started doing these shows, because it would just run and run into the night, and our neighbors below us, she was in an apartment, would complain. And so she actually upgraded the plug in her room, and she had a little table set up like a desk, maybe very similar to what's sitting right behind you, not much, but a set of cabinets where she could kind of store the rubber. Back then you would stamp on the top. Right? There was no label top or anything like that, so you would actually index it by stamping on the top. And she hired her first employee in, I think, the year after she left, so about 1975, maybe the summer. And they would work together pretty much during the day, like a regular job, 9 to 5, and they'd make stamps all day. And then we'd carry them around in these cases. They were basically portable cabinets that you could pull out, and you could get all the various stamps, and you could bring them to shows, and you could just sell them. One by one as people ordered them. And so very quickly that was too much too. And so in 1977 we actually moved to another house that had a garage. And it was a long driveway and a garage at the end, and that was where Hero Arts Manufacturing began in earnest. It's interesting because, so that's 1977. We still have an employee, Roberto, whose older brother was one of the first employees at that house. And so he's
that's great.
all that time, and Roberto today still works for us. He still works in our press room.
Oh, that's awesome. I might need you to send me a picture of Roberto so I can put it in the blog post. That's awesome. Okay.
Yeah, Roberto's a character. He's got great tattoos. We've actually modeled one of the stamps after one of his tattoos. Maybe he'll show it for you. And awesome. I'll definitely send that to you. But yeah, he's a great character. That's been one of the kind of centerpieces of the company. One of the way that we've honored my mother's concept and idea about this company is that she really has always thought that family was important. That's why she made me work for the company for so long. My cousins worked for the company, but also the employees. I mean, they were really close. They were friends. I mean, they would be in the house for lunch. They would, really be a part of the family, and we've always had that as kind of a centerpiece of what we do. The average employee at Hero Arts today has worked for us for 17 years.
Oh my gosh!
Wow. One of our longtime employees, Lay, who's in customer service for any retailers who call in, I think know Lay very well. He's been wanting to be a firefighter for a number of years, and so now he's just started his 20th year, and he's decided that he's going to move on from Hero Arts. Very sad day, right?
Yeah.
But his mother's worked here, right? He was talking about maybe his wife working here in the future, although she just had a baby. Maybe that's not going to happen now, but it's just the way of things at Hero Arts is that we have long-time employees. Typically, they were found because one of their family members worked here initially, and I think that goes back to that garage where the company started, because those people who started working for Hero Arts are just lifetime friends, and we consider them family, and that's really where the beginning of that kind of whole idea of the company has begun from an employment perspective.
I think that shows. I think Jennifer and Christina would agree with me. I really think that shows in your business and the way you treat people. I know I feel like a valued Hero Arts customer. I think I've been buying Hero Arts as long as Roberto has been there.
That's great.
Well, I've been started working with Hero Arts, gosh, almost 13 or years ago or so,
Yeah.
and they turned me into a stamper. I was a scrapbooker. And Aaron is the reason I'm a stamper. He and Sherry Carroll's the reason I love techniques. And the thing that I've always admired, you'll never hear me say anything but positive things about Hero Arts. Christina's heard so much over the years. But one of the things that I admire is that, there were years where I worked a lot with Hero, and then I had kids, and I stopped traveling and different things. And Aaron has always been incredibly understanding about everything because of that focus on family and what's important. And I admire that tremendously. I think it's really, it speaks volumes for them.
You're making me all teary.
I know.
I'm like, wait, well, Jennifer hasn't said on camera yet, but she actually has a cold, so part of that, I think, is she has a cold. But other than that, I think you'll get a little emotional. I was going to say, my first encounter with a Hero Art stamp, I think it was early 90s.
When you were 5, right?
No. No. Well, it's probably more like mid-90s, actually, now I think about it. My older sister, who's 2 years older than me, she played on a softball team with one of her best friends named Brandy Wolf. And Brandy, I don't know how Brandy got a stamp or whatever, but she's like, you have to try this, it's so fun. And she had this little stamp, it was a wooden stamp, and I believe it was a Hero Art stamp. And it was like a bucket with some flowers kind of coming out the top. And so they went to the store and they bought Crayola markers, like the big jumbo markers, colored on the stamp, and then, breathe on it, that we all do. And then stamped down, and my sister was all, wow, and then, of course, Brandy brings over some embossing powder, and they're holding their paper with their stamp and embossing powder over the top of a toaster, so you get it to heat up. And I remember I was just, I'm 2 years younger, and I was just watching, all this happening, and then they walk away, and they go do something, and then the next thing you know, I'm breaking out the markers and trying to do the stamp. So, and then I didn't really encounter stamps probably for another 10 years. But I still remember that vividly of using the marker on the top of the stamp and then stamping it down onto paper, and how it's sort of magical because you're taking this amazing illustration that, as a young kid you couldn't necessarily do on your own, but then you get to pick the colors and you get to, stamp it and make it your own. I think it's just really neat. And I think we've had conversations on previous episodes of Crafty Chat about how, we all, when you see heat embossing or you see that stamping thing, it's the gateway drug, and then you have to have it all. I think it's just amazing. And so I think I wouldn't be surprised if we heard back from a lot of people watching this in the comments or whatever, saying that one of the first stamps they ever used was from Hero Arts. I think we'd be surprised at all to hear that.
Well, it warms my heart to think that's true. And I think that so many stories we get over the years, and even now, we've opened a small factory store here where we've got, sometimes we overmake certain products, and so anybody who's local can come in and see some of our overruns. And we've had stories. We've had people come in and tell us things. They're just so heartwarming, just like yours, as you just told, where their first stamp is from the 90s. Their first ink pad still works 30 years later. And it's just wonderful to see the joy and the smile on people's faces. And I think that's why my mom was so captivated by this industry, by just stamping in general, is that she'd make these stamps and people really didn't know what to think about what they were. Looking at them, you don't really know. But then she'd stamp with a black ink pad, put it down and color it a little bit, and their eyes would just light up. And it was just such a wonderful way to interact with people. I think maybe it's that teacher in her, but she just really loves so much that interaction, that individual level, and it's true. I mean, when you've seen a stamp it's a gateway drug. You just want to find out more.
Yeah.
And one more thing, it's funny, for 3 years, people didn't discover that you could actually color right on the stamp pad. I mean, the rubber itself. That was the breakthrough technique in 1999. Up until then, it was that you stamped in black and you colored it on the paper. And somebody just realized, oh, wait a minute, And I just think it's so funny now, thinking of all the techniques, like all the creativity and blogs, that all of you do all the time. Just recently for a release that Jennifer does, all these constantly new and really exciting ways to bring out color, to bring out embossing, to bring out the designs that are made. Back then it was so simple in the day. I just marvel at how far we've come.
I know, and I think back to, speaking of old hero art stamps, back in those days, it really made being a pen pal super fun, having
Yeah.
stamps. Like, it's so much more interesting to write a letter if you have stamp images, which is what I used them for early on, and even into college when I would, we still wrote letters when I was in college. We didn't have cell phones, and I would always stamp my letters and my envelopes to my friends, and it was just so amazing to see all the different images that everybody came up with. My girlfriends, my guy friends, everybody stamped their letters back then. And I'm glad that like letter writing and card sending is kind of coming back, because I think I think the stamp industry is 100% responsible for that, because it just makes it so much fun to put a little piece of yourself in there. So the Postal Service probably appreciates you too, Erin, not just us.
No doubt, and I think it's such a wonderful thing to receive a card. And Christmas cards, are often the time that people think of that. And really, the industry was about 50% focused on Christmas images and Christmas designs, because that's when people, during the holidays, would send cards. And I think then slowly Valentine's Day and then Mom's Day, Dad's Day kind of started peeling in. But really, it was card making. The industry, as much as anything. I mean, we've been talking about the art of stamping, but in so many ways, the company and the industry started around card making as much as anything. Envelopes as well, right? Stamping on your envelope, stamping on your card, creating something of yourself and giving it to them, and not just saying "I love you," but creating that card that's very meaningful to you and creative from your heart is really the way to express it.
And we're saving so much money, right? We're saving a ton of money by making our own cards.
Well, that was always the joke, right? Yeah, that was the joke. Oh, let's making your own cards is the way to save money. Well, of course not, right? It's not at all the way, because then you have to try all the different things. But man, is it so much more fun than buying a card.
Yeah.
Every once in a while, somebody, like, I'll just briefly meet and I'll say something about making cards, and they're like, man, you must save a lot of money not having to buy cards. And I'm like, oh my word. If you only knew.
Right.
Now, Erin, a couple years back, one thing I wanted to make sure I asked you about, because I thought this was super cool at the time, you won an environmental award, didn't you, in the state of California?
That's true. Yeah, thank you for bringing that up. I actually took over for my mother in the late 90s. So she decided to move on. She was getting older. She still had a passion for it and still was very involved in the company. But I started working at Hero Arts on and off up until about 2004, when I kind of took over full time. And I felt that it was my mother's company in so many ways, and I wanted to honor that, and I was very proud of all the things she accomplished, the things that she had done for the industry, for the employees, and I really wanted to find a way to continue to honor that, to continue to build on her legacy, and at the same time bring in some of who I am and what I really feel is important. And one of the areas is that I went through systematically all the products that we make, and I audited them to try to figure out a way that we could be better for the environment. That was something that, an industry where I came from the green business industry, economic development, and so for me, it was just such a natural fit, because card making and family just work together with that idea of, if you're going to do something for your family, if you're going to do something for people you love, don't you think you want it to be the best it can be? And so you don't want toxins in your inks, you don't want chemicals in the rubber that glues the product together. So I worked very hard to analyze all of that stuff And I wanted other people to get involved too. So I asked our vendors to get involved, and I asked our employees to get involved. And so what happened was this kind of became something that it turned out that we all, just like, passionate about card making, passionate about stamping, we were also passionate about making it the best product, the highest quality product we could make it. So in the process of all working together, and I don't take credit for this myself, because it was a team effort to do it, we just made a bunch of discoveries that allowed us to eliminate the use of toxins, eliminate the use of chemicals, eliminate the use of so many other things in the past that you just didn't need. Here's a great example. We use, this is undermount. I happen to have this on my desk, believe it or not. I did not prepare for this. It is something I keep on my desk. And it's something that is the underside of it's the soft, foamy mount between the stamp and the block. This is from the auto industry, a wonderful creation of the auto industry. It's in your car doors and all. It's in your microwave oven. But they have different standards than we have. They have fire retardant requirements, and they have impact requirements. As far as I know, stamps don't catch fire and generally don't have high impacts. And so we were able to look at those and say, well, we don't really need a lot of that. Let's make this water-based. Let's make this biodegradable if we can, and we were able to. And so now we were able to add on one side, the side that goes on the wood block, it's a wood-based, water-based adhesive. On the side that touches the rubber, it's a rubber adhesive, obvious, right? Specifically bound with rubber, specifically bound with wood. And in the process of discovering little things like that throughout our company and installing a solar array that powers the entire operations,
wow,
we were able to pretty much change the face of the way we manufacture. And not just for us. I mean, this undermount, the company that was working with us got a patent on this. And now this is pretty common for a lot of companies in the industry. Probably don't even know it, but it is something that doesn't have that fire retardant in it anymore. Why do you need it? And so for that reason, in so many ways, we were able to change the process for our employees. We don't want them interacting with harsh chemicals. And so now we don't even use water in our process. There's no chemicals, there's no water, we don't need any of that stuff. And for that reason, we, in the process of finding these things that we just thought was right, we were kind of nominated for our series of environmental awards. We actually won 3 environmental awards over 4 years for environmental leadership in the space of manufacturing. I had the opportunity to meet the governor of California, Jerry Brown, because he wanted to award it very specifically to us, and that was 2 years ago. And I reminded him that he actually visited our facility many years ago, in November 2004, and shake my son's hand, who was just a little baby. And so many years later, I was able to see him again, and he was really an inspiration for a lot of that stuff, because he, at that point, was talking about we need to kind of make the state strong for our kids. And at that time, I took that very seriously, and I told him that. And so 10 years later, we were brought together again, and he was giving us an environmental award. And little did he know that he inspired that.
Oh, awesome.
That is a great story, and I think in general, the art community, that means a lot to the art community, because I think we generally want to, tread lightly, and that means a lot. I bet that's a story a lot of people haven't heard about you. That's super cool.
It's interesting you bring that up, if you don't mind me saying. We're actually working on something that will allow the art community to do the same thing we do with our employees, which is we have something called a green pledge at Hero Arts. It's non-binding. You just say that you'll try to do the best and you can at your own home and your own community. We're actually going to make that a feature on our website where you can do the same. You can tell ways that you try to keep your house, your family, your community green. By recycling paper parts, by not selecting inks that you think are toxic, by making choices that you feel are going to be better for the environment, and sharing stories. So that's actually going to be a part of our website in the future. It's going to be called a Green Pledge.
Awesome. And I know you have other things you've done, like last month's kit where you did a donation to the World Wildlife Fund. Has charity always been part of the business and making sure that you're a good steward of those donations?
I mean, we try to be in every way we can. One of the, I think, guiding lights for that is that my mother, even after she stopped teaching, she always wanted to include kids and teaching as part of the way that she thought of the company. She would host classes. She would have kids do tours in our facilities, generally young kids, second grade, third grade. And man, to see them come through the facilities, wide-eyed, they have the best questions. I mean, absolutely the best questions, because they often don't have filters. They're like, "Why are you doing that? What's that for?" Right? It's just wonderful, and so it's always been a very dynamic part of our goal as a company in order to give back, and that is that we continue to host classes, small, younger kids who come, and they generally get a tour of Hero Arts. We work with local schools, and they get a small stamping class, and it's just such a wonderful way for us to give back to the community. And from that, we decided, not everybody's got local schools that are right near Hero Arts. Let's see if we can reach beyond. So we always try to come up with a different charity, a different partnership, a different way, at least once a year, if not more often, that allows us to give back in different ways. We have a long history of giving to breast cancer, sponsoring people who are doing breast cancer. We have a long history of working with environmental organizations. We have a long history of working with children's organizations. A lot of children's hospitals, if you ever go into them, hopefully you don't ever have to, but if you do have to, across the nation, I think children's hospitals is a hotbed of stamping. We have given so many stamps to children's hospitals over the years that I would not be surprised if you went in that you would see some in their little craft area, in the waiting room area, because that's something that my mother believed in. It's her roots, it's where she came from, and so for that reason we continue to be a big part of that. And finally, we actually located in Richmond as a company. We decided to pick this location because it was a economically distressed area, and we specifically decided when we had an opportunity to move from Berkeley, we looked for a place where we felt that we could really make an impact. We could bring employment to an area that doesn't have full employment, an area that maybe doesn't have very many manufacturing jobs. And so for that reason, we have kind of built the way that we think of our family based on giving back to not only our employees, but the people who live in the area as well.
And tell everybody where Hero Arts, the building. Tell them about that building.
Oh yeah, it's kind of a cool place. I'm glad we found it. Richmond is a fairly depressed area, but it wasn't always that way. In World War II, the old Ford plant, which is just down the street from us, used to roll tanks out for World War II. Continued to make Ford cars before and after, but nonetheless was the home of, you probably heard of this term, Rosie the Riveter and Wendy the Welder. Right? So as men were going off to war, women were looking for ways to contribute. And here was a great way where they would actually build battleships right off the point where we're located for the World War II effort at that time. So Wendy the Welder and Rose the Riveter obviously represent many different people, but they used to work right here at the end of this point. And just up from that building, the old Ford plant, is a cannery. They used to make food products for the war efforts during that time. Before and after, of course, they also canned fruits for all over the nation. And so this building is really, it's old world manufacturing. And so I just thought it would be very exciting to come to an area that the cannery has long since been out of business. The old Ford plant's long since been out of business, but now they've got solar companies, and they've got grain companies, and they've got all these new manufacturing companies in the old Ford plant. And I thought it'd be really exciting to do the same at our cannery. So it's kind of new style manufacturing in old world setting, and so I think it's a wonderful story to have and a wonderful history to be a part of.
Now, if I decide to buy a parka so that I can survive San Francisco's temperatures, can other people get tours of the manufacturing as well? Older kids like me?
Yes, we give tours all the time. If you're in the area, I encourage you. I give a very broad invitation to anybody who's visiting the San Francisco Bay Area. Richmond is just right across the water from San Francisco, and actually from our docks you can stare at San Francisco, so we have the better view. San Francisco has to look at us. We don't look very nice on their side, but so it's a great place to visit. And if you can bear the cold, which is a lot more cold in the summer, definitely come and tour our facility. We actually have 2 facilities. I currently work in all the professional staff, the assembly staff. We work in Richmond. We have another facility in Oakland. It's called the dirty facility. It's not technically dirty at all, but it's loud because we cut our wood blocks. We use sustainable wood that we hand cut ourselves, and we also vulcanize the rubber. So those old vulcanizers that used to be in our bathroom are now big, giant presses, industrial size, also World War II made, and those are in the Oakland facility. That is a lot less conducive to tours because you have to wear gear, you have to wear eye guards, you have to, go through a series of safety checks before you can walk in that facility. But the Richmond facility, where all the finished stamps are made and assembled, I welcome you to come and tour.
Fun. Do you still have the old vulcanizer, by the way?
We do not have that old vulcanizer. Man, I would have loved to create like a little museum around that. We don't actually have all of our old catalogs either. I've asked my mom about that. Like the one I showed you, this fold-out one, which is this poster, it says 3rd, and I don't have the first 2. So
I bet somebody listening will have those first 2.
Yeah, so that's 1978. So apparently there was a 1977 and a 1976.
And you just shake down Sherry Carroll next time you see her.
Yes. My mom claims she has it somewhere in a box, but she hasn't, as of yet, been able to find it. But it would be great to be able to see those.
It would be fun to bring back a few of those designs.
It would be. Some of them are hilarious, and
I love the frog.
70s, and others I think would be stylish today.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Well, Erin, is there anything that you would like to say to the Crafty community before we wrap up?
Well, one of my favorite things about this industry is that I just love to come to work every day because there's so many creative, exciting, inspiring things to see and do. And for that reason, I think we absolutely have the best industry and the best people. I mean, I could not imagine a better place to work and to play and to be able to meet people. The people in this industry are kind of longtime friends. Even if I haven't met you, I kind of feel that way. And I have so many friends in this industry that, man, I hope that everyone has that same joy and love because it just seems like that's what has built this industry and keeps it strong and vibrant. Plus, it's a family. It really is a big family. Certainly, from my perspective, there are competitors, of course, but we're all part of this creative community. And no one company is going to be able to dominate or put out the best products. It's the joy of having so many different creative people who are focused in this space and enjoying the same things that we enjoy, finding creative new ways to do things. I think that's just the wonderment of this industry. I actually came from the green industry, and that's all about litigation. That's the part that I just didn't want to be a part of anymore. I mean, so you basically hate everybody, right? You hate the government you hate these companies for spilling, toxins. It's all about dislike and unhappiness, and lawyers. I don't have anything against lawyers. I just generally don't like to hang out with them. And so this industry, it seems like it's just the opposite. It's about really making friendships that last. I know so many people that I've in this industry, like Jennifer, 14 years, Sherry for 25, Sherry Carroll, Heidi, people who are have been competitors for many years. I know them as friends, and I think that really is the magic. And for anybody who hasn't really seen what other industries look like, this is a very unique place to live and play. So for that reason, I think this is just such a wonderful day, every day, to be a part of the art of stamping and all the creativity that comes with it.
Now everybody knows why I love Hero Arts so much.
Exactly.
So I am going to personally ask that I think we should do another chat with Aaron, and I would love to hear more like current day, because one of the things that I've always respected about Aaron is his willingness to help out other companies and make this a like a creative playground, not like just such a business, closed-minded thinking. And Aaron is one of the most positive people I've ever met. So I think if we do another chat, it would be fun to bring in some of that discussion too, because there's a lot you can learn from him. I know many companies that I've talked to who've said they've learned so much from Aaron, so I would love to schedule another chat and talk about more of that.
Okay, you have to say yes now, Aaron. Sorry.
Well, such a nice introduction from Jennifer around the next chat. How could I say no? Did my mom tell you to say all that stuff?
No. But I said this in a video a few weeks ago. A lot of the people I know and a lot of the friends that many people have and a lot of the doors that have opened for many people can be directed back to Hero Arts in one way or another. Like I met Christina. I had talked to her online, but the first time I met her I was teaching at a Hero Arts class. I met Heidi at a show where I was with Hero Arts. So a lot of the people that we know and love in this industry and that we learn so much from can all trace their beginnings back to a door that Hero Arts opened. So I think it'd be a really fun discussion to hear from your point of view too, because you've added so much to the industry that way. So
is this essentially like we've had our first date, and at the end of the first date, we're planning our second date?
I think we are.
Is that what this is?
Yes, and we're going to talk all night. It's going to be amazing.
So Aaron's planning his second date with 3 women, and he's married. But we love Laura. Laura works at Hero Arts, and we love Laura, so she's all good.
Yes. It's family business, so my wife's right next door. She's the design director of the company.
And maybe we can bring her into the next call, too.
Yeah, and I'll ask her, but it's a date. It sounds good.
Wait.
I'm in.
There have been many times I've been to dinners with Aaron where there's Aaron and 8 women, and I always think, this poor guy.
Yes. I'm not complaining, let me tell you.
Yeah, or he chose his industry well, one or the other.
That's another way to look at it.
If I would have known, I would have chosen it for that reason, but I didn't know.
Well, Aaron, speaking personally, I just admire you so much and everything. I think that everything you talked about today really shows in what we see as consumers from Hero Arts, just kind of the love of the industry and just your kind and generous spirit. And, Hero still continues to just be a huge part of everybody's crafty budget every month just because you innovate so well. But it was so fun hearing the history and how that all got started. So I am looking forward to our second date. And I really, really, really appreciate you being here today. It was super fun talking to you.
Well said, Lydia.
I agree.
Right. I look forward to it as well. Thank you so much for spending the time with me.
You
Thank
bet.
you.
Well, we will see all of the rest of you next time.